My name is Ethan. I was 27 years old, working two jobs, and still couldn't pay rent. My wife, Melissa, said she believed in me, but slowly her words became sharp like knives. She used to say love was enough, but later she wanted money, comfort, and shiny things. I gave her everything I could, but to her, it was never enough. Never the life she wanted. We lived in a small apartment with broken windows, leaking pipes, and no heating in winter. I fixed what I could. I stayed strong. I told her to wait. I promised life would get better. She would sigh loudly, scroll on her phone, comparing our life to rich couples on the internet. I felt smaller each day, like I was failing, even though I never stopped trying for us. She stopped smiling at me, stopped asking about my day, stopped caring when I came home tired. She looked at me like I was a burden, not a partner, like I was the reason she was unhappy. But I still brought her flowers, cheap ones from the corner store, just to see her smile again. She didn't say thank you, didn't even look, just tossed them on the table without a word. One night she said, "I can't do this anymore." Her voice cold, her eyes already far away. I asked her if she loved me. She didn't answer. She just walked into the room to pack her bags. She didn't cry, she didn't shout, she didn't hesitate, like she had been planning it all along. She walked out that door with her suitcase in hand, leaving behind silence and a broken heart. I sat on the floor for hours, no words, no tears, just emptiness and the sound of the clock. Everything felt heavy, my chest, my legs, my hope, like life had closed its doors forever. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I wanted to chase her, but I couldn't move from that spot. When the sun rose, I stood up slowly, looked around, and decided I would never beg again. I looked at the mirror, eyes red and tired, and I said, "This is not where your story ends." I made a plan that day, a real one, not a dream, not a wish, but a list of clear actions. I cut all distractions, stopped feeling sorry, and started working like I never did before. I read books at night, learned from failures, asked questions, and stayed focused on my goal. People still doubted me, laughed at me, ignored me, but I didn't let it shake my faith. I delivered packages in the morning, worked construction during the day, and studied at night. I slept 4 hours a night, drank cheap coffee, skipped vacations, and said no to every excuse. I was tired, yes, but I had fire inside me, a fire that burned with every memory of her leaving. I started my own small business, online only, selling handmade tools I built in my garage. The first month I made $20, the second I made $50, and I kept going no matter what. I used every cent to grow, bought better tools, built better products, and learned digital marketing. A year later, I was paying rent with ease and saving money for the first time in my life. People began to notice, my brand grew, my products reached more hands, and reviews came in. I hired one worker, then two, then 5, and opened a small workshop outside of town. My story was shared online, my face was on podcasts, and strangers called me inspiring. But I never forgot that night. The cold voice, the closing door, and the way she walked away. One day I saw Melissa again in a coffee shop, alone with tired eyes and a forced smile. She looked surprised to see me, looked me up and down, noticed the suit and the calm eyes. She asked how I was doing. I said, "Better than ever," and she nodded with a fake smile. She tried to talk more, but I stood up politely, wished her well, and walked away in peace. Later, I met someone else, someone who loved my soul before my success, someone real. Her name is Claire. She didn't care about cars, money, or clothes. She just saw me. She supported my dreams, helped me grow more, reminded me to rest, and stayed by my side. Together we built more than wealth. We built peace, laughter, home, and true love. I woke up every morning earlier than the sun, before the city moved, before the world began. I made strong coffee, opened my notebook, checked my goals, and planned my hours carefully. I answered emails with patience, called suppliers with respect, and delivered orders myself. My hands were tired. My back was sore. But my heart was strong, and my mind was focused. People around me started asking questions. They noticed the change, the confidence, the energy. They asked how I did it, how I stayed calm, how I kept moving when nothing seemed to work. I told them the truth, told them it takes pain, time, sacrifice, and a fire that never dies. Some understood, some didn't care. But I kept speaking, because someone out there needed hope. The workshop became a small company, then it became a brand, then it became a real name. I hired more people, trained them well, paid them fairly, and made sure they loved their jobs. I didn't just want money, I wanted meaning. I wanted a place where people felt respected. Every product we made, every hand that touched it, felt like a piece of my journey and heart. I was invited to events, to talk about business, about starting from zero, about building dreams. I stood on stages, looked into crowds, and saw faces full of questions, doubt, and hope. I told them about pain, about nights alone, about the day she left me with nothing but silence. Then I told them about strength, about trying again, about building something no one expected. Money started to come, slowly at first, then quickly. But I didn't let it change my values. I bought better machines, better tools, gave bonuses, and helped employees send kids to school. I supported small businesses, partnered with young creators, and donated to homeless shelters. I remembered how it felt to have nothing, to be unseen, and I promised to never forget that. One evening I sat with Claire, under soft lights, drinking tea, watching the stars with quiet joy. She asked me what I wanted next, what dream still lived inside me, what I hadn't done yet. I smiled and said, I want to teach others, not just grow richer, but help others grow too. She nodded slowly, held my hand and said, then let's do it together step by step. We traveled to small towns, met young people, heard stories that reminded me of my old life. We gave talks in schools, shared ideas, donated supplies, and helped build training centers. We started a program for single mothers, for young dreamers, for anyone who needed a push. We saw their eyes change, saw light come back, and it felt better than any money I ever made. One night I stood alone, outside a building we had just opened, and I looked at the sky quietly. I thought of Melissa, thought of that night, thought of the pain that once felt like the end. I didn't hate her anymore, didn't miss her, didn't wish she had stayed. I just felt peace inside. That loss had pushed me, had changed me, had forced me to rise higher than I ever dreamed. Now I wake up each day with purpose, with joy, with strength that was born in fire and storms. Claire is beside me, laughing in the kitchen, dancing barefoot and filling our home with light. I no longer chase success. I walk beside it. I breathe calmly, and I live with deep gratitude. And when I speak to others, I tell them, sometimes what breaks you builds you even stronger. Months passed, and our lives became brighter, more peaceful, more filled with meaning and love. Claire supported every new step, encouraged my ideas, believed in my dreams, and gave me strength. I started writing a book, sharing my journey, the pain, the work, and the quiet victories. People wanted to know more, not just about business, but about healing, love, and starting again. The book became a bestseller, translated worldwide, and read in cafes, schools, and prisons too. I got letters from strangers, some in tears, some with hope, some with dreams just starting to grow. One woman wrote, I was going to give up, but then I read your words and stood up again. Another wrote, your story helped me forgive my father after 20 years of silence and hate. I did not expect fame, did not chase attention, but it found me, and I chose to use it well. I joined global conferences, spoke with leaders, shared ideas, and helped change broken systems. I started a foundation with Claire, focused on mental health, education, and women's safety. We built centers in poor towns, hired local women, offered jobs, hope, safety, and fair pay. Sometimes I sat quietly at night, thinking of the journey, the silence, the hunger, the old room. I thought of my mother's hands, how they worked without rest, how they touched my face so gently. She passed away 2 years ago, in peace, in warmth, in a home filled with love and flowers. I still talk to her sometimes when I feel lost or when I'm proud and want to share my joy. My foundation grew fast, faster than I imagined, and soon we opened schools in 3 countries. Each school was built with care, with real teachers, real tools, and real hearts to serve others. We didn't just teach math. We taught self-worth, dreams, respect, kindness, and second chances. I visited each one, hugged the kids, listened to stories, and left with tears and hope together. Claire and I adopted 2 children, siblings from a shelter, quiet and bright, named Noah and Mia. They were scared at first, didn't speak much, but slowly they opened up with love and safety. Now they laugh often, draw stories, ask questions, and tell us they're happy to have a home. Every night we read books, brush teeth together, and say thank you for another beautiful day. We don't live in a castle, don't drive golden cars, but our house is filled with peace and joy. I still make coffee every morning, still walk with Claire, still think of the days I had nothing. I speak to students often, reminding them that beginnings can be dark, but not the whole story. I tell them, don't run from pain, walk through it, and let it shape you into something greater. Many people ask if I ever saw Melissa again, the woman who left when I was broke and broken. Yes, I saw her once, at a restaurant across the room, sitting with someone I didn't know. She looked happy, looked calm, and I felt nothing sharp, only a quiet acceptance and goodbye. We nodded briefly, 2 pasts crossing for a moment, then disappearing again without words. I have no anger left, no bitterness, just a memory that helped shape who I became later. Sometimes life breaks you, not to destroy you, but to clear space for something better to grow. Claire taught me that with her calm hands, her soft eyes, and the way she walks without fear. Together we teach others now how to rise again, how to love again, and how to live with light. My journey is not finished. I'm still learning, still growing, still falling and rising with grace. But now I fall with support, rise with purpose, and breathe with peace I never knew before. There are scars on my heart, but they don't hurt. They remind me where I've been and who I am. And each day I live, I choose kindness, I choose hope, I choose love again and again and again. Some years passed slowly, and I watched everything grow, from people to plans, from hope to joy. Our home became warmer, filled with music and laughter, books on every shelf, and peace in air. Claire painted often, soft blue skies, wide rivers, and faces of children full of light and life. She said painting healed her, brought her silence, gave her space to dream and feel again. Noah loved stories, asked deep questions, wanted to be a scientist, curious about stars and time. Mia liked drawing dresses, designing shoes, saying she would one day open her own fashion brand. I encouraged both gently, helped with homework, told them they could do anything they imagined. We spent weekends hiking, watching clouds, visiting libraries, and planting flowers in our yard. My business grew stronger slowly and wisely with kind people, fair deals, and real values inside. I turned down many offers from loud investors who wanted fast money, not true change or heart. Instead, I focused on quality, on purpose, on people, and kept building something I truly loved. I hired young people from shelters, trained them well, and watched their lives shift with pride. One day I returned to my hometown, walked the same streets, felt the same winds, and saw myself. The old building still stood, broken but brave, full of stories, full of struggles I still recall. I found the room where I grew up, touched the wall, looked at the door, and felt tears inside me. It smelled the same, dusty and tired, but I was no longer afraid, just grateful to be back whole. An old neighbor saw me, didn't believe it, said, "You look like someone from a dream or story." I smiled kindly, said I was the boy who wore torn shoes and studied hard without complaining. She held my hand tight, called others out, and soon the street filled with faces from the past. Some had changed, some had not, but all clapped and smiled, and I felt warmth cover my heart. I donated to the school, repaired the walls, bought new books, and opened a reading garden outside. Children came with wide eyes, hungry minds, laughing voices, and dreams growing like fresh seeds. I told them my story, not as a hero, but as a boy who kept walking, even when the road was dark. They listened quietly, then asked questions, bold and bright, like stars falling from soft skies. Back home, I started writing again, but this time it was not just my story, it was theirs too. Stories of silent heroes, of mothers who carried pain with grace, of boys who never gave up. I wrote of girls who fixed broken homes, who studied by candlelight, and still passed every exam. Claire helped me edit, Mia drew the cover, and Noah added quotes from science and space books. The book was titled The Road to Light, and it reached places I never imagined, across the world. Teachers used it in classrooms, doctors gave it to patients, and prisoners read it with tears. I was invited to prisons, too, to speak to men who felt forgotten, who still had dreams within. I told them that wealth is not just money, but strength, peace, wisdom, kindness, and soft truth. In one prison, a tall man cried, said he left his son like my father, and now he wanted to heal. I hugged him tightly, said it is never too late, and hope begins the moment we believe again. Some people asked why I give time to strangers, why I care so much about people I never knew. I said pain taught me to listen, and love taught me that no one is ever truly a stranger. Claire and I traveled to many places, villages with no electricity, towns without clean water. We brought teams with us, fixed wells, built libraries, trained teachers, and gave scholarships. We did not take photos for fame, did not post stories. We simply worked and watched lives change. Sometimes it was hard, exhausting, and slow, but every child who smiled made it worth the journey. At night, we sat outside, under quiet stars, talked about the past, and planned for the future. We dreamed of a world where no child sleeps hungry, no girl is forced to stop school, no boy gives up. We wanted people to believe again in effort, in hope, in kindness, in small changes that matter. I knew the world would never be perfect, but we could still add light, even if only one candle. One rainy evening, I received a letter, no return name. But the words inside shook me deeply. It was from Melissa, my ex-wife, the one who left when life was too hard and I had nothing. She wrote she saw me on the news, heard my story and cried for the years she walked away. She said she didn't want anything, just forgiveness, and thanked me for loving her once with truth. I read the letter twice, sat quietly, then smiled softly and placed it inside a wooden box. Not out of anger, not from pain, but because I had already let go, years ago, with peace. Claire knew she saw the envelope, asked nothing, just held my hand and kissed my shoulder. We sat there together as rain fell slowly, and I felt grateful again for every twist of life. Now I mentor young leaders, boys and girls from hard places who have big ideas and bold hearts. I teach them about patience, honesty, and staying human even when the world is not. I remind them that success means sleeping peacefully, knowing you helped someone rise again. I tell them to forgive fast, dream big, walk slow, and always leave a door open for hope. Years passed slowly, and the world around me changed, but I stayed true to my path and promise. I kept helping people, teaching in schools, building small clinics, and funding food for the poor. Each morning I felt peace, not because I had more, but because I had learned what truly matters. Love, time, health, and purpose. Those were the things I counted every night before I slept. Claire opened a school, small but bright, full of children who once had no place to learn. She taught with joy, painted the walls, added books and music, and grew gardens outside. Mia became a designer just as she dreamed and opened her own store near the city center. Noah studied science, won many awards, and now speaks to students about courage and truth. One day I was invited to speak in a stadium full of young people waiting for new hope. I walked to the stage, heart beating strong, looked at their faces and smiled with peace. I told them my story, not for fame, but to remind them that every end can be a beginning. They clapped with tears, asked deep questions, and I stayed for hours, answering with care. Later that week, I returned to my office, where my first notebook still sat on the shelf. It had pages torn, corners bent, old dreams inside, and I read every word with soft eyes. I saw drawings, numbers, little poems, notes from my mom, and my first dream to be strong. I held it close, remembered the stairs she cleaned and whispered, "You were right, always." One evening we sat under golden light, the sky turning pink and birds flying above, Claire looked at me and said, "We did it." And I said, "No, you did it with your heart." We held hands, not needing words, just quiet breaths and a long moment of pure stillness. Our children joined us, laughing with tea, telling new stories and dreams they had seen. I built a home for children who lost their parents or had no roof to sleep under at night. We gave them books, warm food, clean beds, and a safe space to dream without fear or shame. I read to them often, told bedtime stories, listened to their thoughts, and stayed near always. They called me uncle, hugged me tight, and showed me what healing looks like from the soul. Not long after, I was named in a list of people who brought hope, not just money or fame. I smiled kindly, thanked them once, but said the real reward is watching a child smile again. Success is not the car, not the house, not the award, but the peace you feel helping others rise. It is the voice you give to the silent, the light you bring to a long-forgotten street at night. Now I travel less, sleep early, drink tea with Claire, and read books near our old window. I still write letters to people in pain, to those who feel lost and need someone to care. Some reply quickly, some never do. But I always believe one word can save a tired soul. Sometimes the world is loud, cruel, and fast, but silence, love, and truth are stronger always. When I look back, I see not pain, but growth, not failure, but the road that shaped my heart. Every tear was a seed, every hunger a lesson, every goodbye a door to something better. If Melissa never left, I would never know Claire, and never find the strength deep inside. Losing everything was a gift. It broke me gently, and then gave me everything that lasts.